and welcome to Conversations on AI, a haptic initiative for thought leaders around the world to discuss the impact of technology and AI on business. I'm happy to welcome Dennis Wakabayashi, International Customer Experience Expert. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, hi, Alex. Thanks for having me today.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I can just tell you that I started in digital marketing about 30 years ago. And over the course of my career, I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different technologies, both innovations and technologies that emerged and flourished and became mature. And all of those technology connections, I think, lead to great customer experiences. I hold a position as a CX leader at one of the top 10 marketing solutions companies in the world. And when I'm not doing that, I spend a lot of time speaking with great people like yourself about these topics in the hopes that we can share the learning with the wider audience. So thank you again for having me.
Thanks for joining us. All right, so our theme for today is how technology impacts customer experience. And I wanted to start by asking Dennis, what's your take on today's theme?
I think, well, it's super relevant, right? Where my mind goes always with this metaphor or a way to explain technology's relationship to customer experience is like the piano keys on a piano. Each one of the keys is a customer touch point. And sure, you can press on them however you want. But if you pay attention to the connections, the rests in between each note, depending upon how the negative space or the digital connection in the metaphor works, you get different melodies, and different melodies appeal to different audiences. So I think it's super relevant that we continue to have this dialogue, because it's not enough just to create something that's digital and expect it on its own to deliver the melody that audiences want to hear.
That's a great analogy. So I guess, could you maybe tell us a little bit about those melodies or perhaps the principles across customer experience that you always abide by?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because it's such a complex landscape, Alex, I tend to just think of three key experiences that come together to form the whole. And when I think about those, I think of reputation, I think of reach, and then I think of the relationship. Now, so many of our customer experiences and data and analytics are on the relationship side, but if you think of the connection between great relationships between customer and brand that create advocacy or conversation that develops a positive reputation, that positive reputation is really what the algorithms outside of our brands listen to. So the Google algorithm. So when you think about working with AI or technologies inside the brand, translating that momentum back out to the Google algorithm, what that really effectively does is create greater reach. And that greater reach allows us to capture more leads. And it's sort of a virtuous cycle of these three core competencies of technology that are the basis for all customer experiences.
Got it. So really, across the customer journey, there's hundreds of different moments where we have an opportunity to impact across each of those areas. How can organizations identify and make the most of those moments to solve the needs of the customer and provide exceptional customer experience?
That question speaks to a number of different technological theories or approaches. So on one hand, we might say that a customer has a journey. And typically when I hear that, more traditional folks are talking about a segment or a group of customers behave similarly. And as we use things like AI or machine learning, what we start to reveal is that each particular customer has their own unique journey, that segmentations are a little too broad of a stroke, and personalization requires that we have a more intimate relationship with the customer. What I think has really been exciting in this last year is AI and machine learning have begun to show us that customers themselves change from morning to evening. So I might use myself as an example. In the morning, I might be thinking health food, go to the gym, watch my calories, but by the time I get in bed at night, I'm thinking I'd love some chocolate right before I go to sleep. So I'm a completely different person during the day and the evening. So what I think is, when it comes to the customer journey, there's no wrong answer. However, the broader you segment clusters of customers,
Mm-hmm.
the fewer journeys you will have, and an easier time of transitioning traditional marketing to customer experience. The more maturity that you have in technology and digital understanding platforms, use of machine learning, AI, the more granular you're able to get and the more personalized you're able to get. The financial consequence of either one of those is, the broader you get, the more unknown customers you may learn about and reach, and the more granular you get, the more customer lifetime value is revealed. Customer lifetime value is where all of the money and the growth or the revenue for any big brand or any brand is. The better you can have a relationship with your customer to deliver customer lifetime value, the more perpetual your revenue growth will be year over year in a measurable way.
So actually, that it's interesting you bring up AI. That's where I wanted to go next, because MIT's latest technology review insights survey actually found that customer service is the most active department for AI deployment today. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to us about how AI is being used. You know, I know you mentioned granularly clustering customers, perhaps even within their own day. But could you tell us a little bit more about how AI is being used when it comes to customer experience?
Well, certainly. You make a great point. I think we all saw this. There was a clear shift prior to the pandemic. AI was moving towards a outside look at customers. And when the pandemic came, customer care became central to the conversation or the relationship between brands and people who were stuck at home. But I also think what we saw was a rapid transition from call centers to distributed customer care agents, right? So scaling those conversations, AI played a big role in how to route conversations, how to connect agents and customers. It played a big role in the technology of scaling the infrastructure, the technological architecture to serve a both wide audience, high volume, low volume. We saw AI in the customer care space also do some very interesting things that were in the mix, but during the pandemic, they accelerated their learning by translating voice into text and scanning the text to find patterns in the conversations. I think we saw intent, customer intent, or even agent intent start to play a more articulate role in the way we made decisions about staffing or about training within organizations with regard to customer care. I would say that where I found some interesting challenges with AI in the customer care space, particularly during the pandemic, is, as you know, machine learning is largely impacted by the set of data that it can get its hands on. So when we see platforms that isolate data, customer care data, to let's say a particular script that's read by all agents, we get a skew in the learning of the automation that can sometimes lead to deceptive or misunderstood business conclusions. So what I like to see happen is a wider use of AI, sometimes sharing customer data information with collaborative brands really puts both brands in a better position to use the machine learning to serve customers in a more accurate way.
Hmm.
That was a long
Yeah, that
answer.
makes sense. It makes sense. You need variation in what you're experimenting with in order to yield valuable insights. And it sounds like you're seeing that as a challenge, but also an opportunity for kind of the future of automated artificial intelligence in customer experience. Makes
That's right.
sense.
That's right. I mean, you bring up something. I mean, you point out something really relevant there, which is if you can use AI or machine learning to look at customer care data, and you can also look at survey data or business intelligence or other parts of the business, the more you can get the different kinds of information together, the stronger your forecasting will be.
Right. So, what should a business do after a successful digital transformation? How can a business, continually adapt and optimize their digital roadmap?
That's a great, that's an interesting statement. There's no end, no pun intended, but it is a journey. We are always seeking greater maturity. There's always a new frontier. There's always a new technology. There's always a new boundary. We could be talking about things as simple as a language barrier, right? So an evolution in one company's learning may be what's being said in French is a little bit different than Japanese. And how do we learn from those nuances? That could be a simple evolution. I think a lot of people, businesses like to think of scale in terms of revenue as how they evolve their journey. I would say we have choices to make as leaders. Do we evolve our businesses in a way that serve the customer first and the needs of humans? And can we align our business practices to be better to humans and cater more to the planet and the well-being of everyone long term? That's one direction. There's another direction where we look at efficiency and consumption. And I would say that in either case, it's a personal or a operational decision. But I would love to see us lean more towards putting the customer or the human at the center of decisions. And I think by doing that, that empathy, I think, has longer rewards for businesses and people as a whole. So
I see. I see. So thinking more about the long-term goals, putting the customer first when it comes to digital transformation and customer experience, and not thinking so much about the short term or operational efficiency will ultimately lead to better results over the long term.
that's right. And it'll be over the long term and for a longer term, right?
Right, right.
That journey, it extends the journey for the business and the people.
Could I ask you on that note, what are some brands that you think are doing that well, that really are focused on the human side and delivering an exceptional customer experience over things like short-term operational expense decisions?
That is a hot topic on my mind. I would say at this point, we're at a inflection point. I think that there are companies, I think we may hear in the short term, near future, the Elon Musk camp start to be more of this renewable journey experience, metaphorically focused brand generation. However, I would say the vast majority of brands today focus on service design, which has been with us now for about 52 years. They look at operational efficiency, and I think the markets demand that costs get lower. And it's a relationship between the customer and the brand, right? Customers have to say, I'm willing to pay 12 cents more if the company can be more carbon responsible, so it's not just all on the companies. I would say we all collectively have to think about it. ESG has been playing a lot of a new role in helping investors devote money towards corporate responsibility towards the planet. So it's not all on just a company. I don't want to pin it on a brand. I think we're all responsible for looking towards a future where there's more balance or empathy across the board. Empathy for business, empathy for customers.
Got it. Okay. One of the themes that we've seen here at Haptic is a trend towards omnichannel customer experiences. I wanted to ask about your thoughts on omnichannel.
Yeah, thank you. I hear this all the time. So there are multiple channels by which customers connect. We have the technologies today to connect traditional marketing experiences to digital marketing experiences. Particularly the pandemic brought about a lot of RFID or near field communications, touchless. You tap your phone, you take a picture with your phone. So now that we have the ability to get measurement from traditional marketing and connect that with traditional marketing, I would say that all advancing brands would be wise to focus their investments on any touch point that creates customer feedback, and then connect those, as we spoke earlier, as a melody that plays well for their particular audiences. And the better they get at that, the fewer touch points that are not measurable, let's remove those. The more we focus on the keys, the more we can focus on different kinds of melodies, and a brand can portray itself and its value to a wider range of customers.
Yep, that makes sense. So I wanted to ask also, in terms of technological trends, we're seeing voice technology growing. What are a few ways in which voice technology can improve the customer experience, and how do you think that fits in the customer experience journey?
It definitely humanizes the interface between hardware and humans. The ability for different devices to leverage voice I don't think that there is a great standard yet. Many people would argue that it's working, but I think we also have anecdotally where we speak to our phone or our virtual assistant that they don't get the interpretation of what we mean. So I think that we have room to grow there. Where I do think voice makes a lot of sense is in customer care, where you're able to transcribe voice into text and you're able to compare text conversations. AI plays a really strong role there in deciphering the miscommunication. So I think it's making a good headway in voice of the customer, particularly in customer care. I think we have a ways to go in terms of virtual assistants and virtual shopping. Ultimately, though, I think we all have that that dream of being able to stand on a starship and say, computer, do this, and it happens. So I have high hopes for voice. I'm not certain we'll see it really come to maturity for another 25 years.
So I wanted to circle back to your three key areas of customer experience and just ask if you could kind of take us through that once more in the context of what we've discussed today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The three elements are reputation. That's the first area I would focus on. Most of your reputation metrics come from social media. So how a brand and a consumer work together in the social media sphere or of influence is really where the reputation comes from. Google and other algorithms pick up signals there. That really is the birthplace of extended reach to wider audiences. I think if I were to make an easier metaphor, if you post on Instagram and you get 100 people to look at it, you can pay $100 and get 1,000 people to look at a post. That's really that difference between reputation and then reach. But by connecting those two worlds, you can capture customers into a relationship with the brand through a CRM. And once you have an email, an address, a phone number, some sort of personal identifier that's been approved by the customer to be used by the brand, the relationship starts. That relationship is where the journey begins between brand and customer. And if that's done well, the customer takes that conversation back out into the wild to create great reputation. And that's really the cycle. I think the question I always hear in companies, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 brands is, what do we measure? And the truth is, if you measure three metrics, a reputation metric, a reach metric, and a relationship metric, just three simple measurements over a trend line would probably tell you more than all of these fancy dashboards that give you every signal being pushed out by a platform or a persona.
That's great. So Dennis, is there anything else you'd like to leave our viewers with?
My main mission is always to remember that empathy for each other, empathy for stakeholders, empathy for shareholders, empathy for customers. Empathy is the thing that leads to collaboration. And when you can have brands collaborate with their customers or teammates collaborate with each other, you get growth. So I always just try to say empathy and collaboration is the path to growth. And that's really my personal message to people in business and in life.
That's great. So where can our viewers follow you or learn more about your thoughts on customer experience and marketing?
Best place to find me is DennisWakabayashi.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Haptic.
To see other engaging discussions on AI, technology, and business, subscribe to Conversations on AI. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at Conversations on AI. Thank you.